Hey, here is the video on the notes we took in class today, 7.1 and 7.2, the Pythagorean theorem and its converse. You guys should already know this. It should be a review, and remember, like I said in class, if you need to review the simplifying radicals video, go ahead and do that. Or if you need to review on just basic Pythagorean theorem, there's a video for that also. So let's start off with the beginning, and this one should have been fairly simple for you guys. It's asking you to define the hypotenuse. Okay, so number one asks you for the hypotenuse, and remember the hypotenuse is this one, so you should have line segment AB. The second one is asking you for the legs, so this is one leg, this is the other leg, so you should have AC and CB. The third one is asking you for your right angle. This is your right angle, so that is angle C. Or you could also do angle ACB. And then 4 are your acute angles. So if you have a right triangle, your other two angles are your acute angles. So you could do angle A and angle B, or it could also be angle CAB and angle CBA. Alright, so that's fairly simple. I think you guys got that. Alright, so this one's asking you for or to solve using the Pythagorean theorem. Alright, so we know the Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So a is 6, so 6 squared, plus 4 squared equals c squared. 36 plus 16 equals c squared. 36 plus 16 is 52 equals c squared. Now remember, when you want to find the square or the c squared, you take the square root of both sides. So that means that c is equal to the square root of 52. Okay. Remember, do your radical simplifying videos, but this would be 2 times the square root of 13. Right? That's the radical form, and then if you have it in decimal form rounded to the nearest thousand, it should be 7 point, oh, it says, I only did it to the hundredths, so 7.21, right? Alright, the next one. It's telling you that you have two sides, and the sides are 24 and 51, but it doesn't tell you which one is the leg and which one's the hypotenuse. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to solve it two different ways. The first way is you're going to assume that the 51 is the hypotenuse. So that means you're going to have 24 squared plus x squared equals 51 squared. And on the second one, you're going to assume that you don't have the hypotenuse, so 51 and 24 are your legs. So this one is going to be 51 squared plus 24 squared equals x squared. So if you go through and do the Pythagorean theorem, you get 576 plus x squared equals 2,601. X squared equals 2,025. You take the square root of both sides, and x is actually equal to 45 on that one. So that means that this leg is 45. And then over here you have 576 plus 2601 equals x squared. You add those two together and you get 3,177 equals x squared. So that means that x is equal to the square root of 3,177. That's a big number, so I'm not really interested in simplifying the radical. If you use your calculator, you should get approximately 56.36. All right? And this one would be the hypotenuse. Okay. All right, next one. Now this one you just kind of have to think about things. It's giving you a triangle and it actually draws it for you. It draws the height, so it's giving you a right triangle. If you have an isosceles triangle and you draw your height down, this side splits in half, so now this is a 5. So we're dealing with this triangle right here, where we've got 5x, 5 times the square root of 3. Okay? We want to solve for x, so we're just going to use the Pythagorean theory. So x squared plus 5 squared equals 5 times the square root of 3, the entire quantity squared. So x squared plus 25 equals, and remember when you square a radical you square the 5, so that's 25, and you square the square root of 3, and if you square a radical you just pull it out of the radical, so that's 3. So you get x squared plus 25 equals 75. So that means that x squared equals 50. So if you take the square root of both sides, you get x equals the square root of 50, which simplified is 5 times the square root of 2. Alright, so I'm going to erase all this, so if you need to copy it down, pause the video, okay? But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to erase this. Right, now we're going to find the area of this triangle. So this height right here is 5 times the square root of 2. So to find, oh, you know what? And I lied because this one was just trying to find x. So the answer is x equals 5 times the square root of 2. I was thinking about the next problem. All right. So the next one is pretty much the same. The only difference is that they didn't draw the height for you. It's telling you that it's an isosceles triangle with side legs 18, 18, and 30. So you know that this is 18, this is 18, and this is 30. But remember, if you have an isosceles triangle, and if you draw the altitude, what happens to this side? It splits in half. So now we have, this is 15, and this is 15. So now we're dealing with this triangle here, which we have 15, 18, and x. And we're going to solve for the hypotenuse to get, I'm sorry, it's been the first day back at school, so I'm making mistakes. So this is 18, and the height is x. So we're going to do x squared plus 15 squared equals 18 squared. X squared plus 225 equals 324. So x squared equals 99. So x equals the square root of 99. And I think almost everybody that did it in class had the square root of 99, but if you simplify that, you actually get x equals the square root of 9 times 11, right? And the square root of 9 is 3, so it's 3 times the square root of 11. Okay, so that's your height. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this so we can find the area. Okay, so your height here is 3, we'll just leave it the square root of 99, because that's what you guys had. Okay, so now we're going to find the area. Area is equal to 1/2 the base times the height. Okay, so it's 1/2 times the base of the triangle, remember, is 30. So 1/2 times 30 times the height, which is the square root of 99. So 1/2 times 30 is 15 times the square root of 99. Right? So this is your exact answer right here. And if you use the calculator to simplify it, you should get 149.248 feet squared. And this is feet squared also. All right? All right, next one. I'm not going to draw the ladder picture, but I'm just going to draw the right triangle. So the ladder is going to be represented by the hypotenuse. So that's 25 feet. The base of the ladder is 6 feet away. So this is the base, is 6 feet away from there. And this is x. Right? So this should be a simple Pythagorean theorem. X squared plus 6 squared equals 25 squared. X squared plus 36 equals 625. X squared equals 589. So x equals the square root of 589. So that means that x is approximately equal to 24.3 feet. Okay? All right, so here comes the toughie. All right, so they have a rectangle. It's telling you to find the width of a rectangle if the length of the rectangle is 3 longer than the width. So this is the length, 3 longer than the width. This is the width, which is w, and it says that the diagonal is 15. So when you take a diagonal of a rectangle, all you're doing is you're making two right triangles. So now we're just dealing with this right triangle over here. So we know that the formula is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So a is w, so we have w squared, plus b is w plus 3, so w plus 3 squared equals 15 squared. Okay, right away you should be able to look at this and see that you're probably going to have a quadratic. So we have w squared plus, okay, I'm going to do this w plus 3 squared over here on the side. Right, we're talking about squaring binomials, right? So you do double distribution. So w times w is w squared. 3 times w is 3w, right? And then 3 times w here is 3w, and 3 times 3 is 9. So you get w squared plus 6w plus 9. Okay, that's what this is right here. W squared plus 6w plus 9 equals 15 squared, which is 225. All right, so we simplify. 2w squared equals 2w squared plus 6w. Now remember, we want to set it equal to 0 if it's a quadratic. So if we take away 225 from 9, we get negative 216 equals 0. Okay? So now we're going to factor. And whenever you have a quadratic, and if you've got even numbers, always factor out a 2, right? It just makes it easier. So if you factor out a 2, we get w squared plus 3w minus 108 equals 0. All I did was I divided everything by 2. Okay? So now, when we do our factorization, we should get, let's see, how would we write that? It would be w squared plus 9w minus 12. I'm writing a y, I'm not sure. Y. 9w minus 108. Okay, so we factor out a w, so w, and this is w plus 9. Then we factor out a negative 12. That's w plus 9 also. So that leaves us with w minus 12 times w plus 9. Okay, and this is factoring. You guys should know this. All right, I'm going to erase this part so we have more space. Okay, so when we go up here, that means that w equals 12 or w equals negative 9. Okay, it cannot be negative 9 because this is a negative number. You can't have a negative length or width. So this one would be w is equal to 12. Okay, and you can plug it back in to check and see if it works. All right, now this one. Basically what you're going to do here is you're going to have to add something. So it gives you some information. You know that this is a rectangular prism. So you know that this on the bottom here is a rectangle. So I'm going to change my pen color. So draw yourself a diagonal. So if you draw a diagonal, now you've given yourself a right angle right here. So this triangle right here is a right triangle. So if you have 3, 4 on a right triangle, you can always know that the length of that hypotenuse is going to be 5 because it's a 3, 4, 5 triangle. Okay, now when you drew this diagonal, this line right here makes a perpendicular. Right, so now you have another right triangle. So let's go ahead and I'm going to draw this right triangle over here. Okay, this right here is this side. So if this is 12, this has to be 12. The x right here is the hypotenuse, and the 5 right here is the base. Okay, so that one's very simple. As long as you can pull that triangle out of there, when you solve that one, you should end up with x is equal to, I'm just going to do that, so 5 squared plus 12 squared equals x squared. So 25 plus 144 equals x squared. X squared equals 169. And take the square root of both sides, so x is equal to 13. Okay. Now, the next page is an exploration activity, and we didn't get to it in class, so I'm just going to explain something to you. So turn to the very back where it has that chart that tells you to answer the questions for the more or less activity. All right, so right triangle. How do you prove that something is a right triangle? You prove that something is a right triangle by a squared plus b squared equals c squared. That means if I give you lengths, if I give you a 3, 4, 5 triangle, you can prove that it's a right triangle by saying that you know the hypotenuse is always the longest side. So 3 squared plus 4 squared is equal to 5 squared. So that's 9 plus 16 equals 25. So 25 equals 25. That's a right triangle. Okay? If you put in that are not, that does not equal this, then it is not a right triangle. Okay? So anything that's not a right triangle is either an obtuse triangle or an acute triangle. Now there is a way to tell if it's one or the other with a formula. Okay, we're still going to use a squared plus b squared and c squared. Okay, if it's an obtuse triangle, make sure you write this down. If it's an obtuse triangle, that means the side length of A, and C is always going to be the longest side. Of course, it's not the hypotenuse if it's a right triangle, but it's just going to be the longest side. So if the two shorter sides squared added together is less than the longest side squared, then that means that this is an obtuse triangle. It's opposite. So think obtuse big, so it's less than. Okay? So that means if my two side lengths, so if I have a triangle that looks like this, and I say that this is A, this is B, this is C. If you square both of those sides and add them together, and it's less than C squared, then it's an obtuse triangle. Okay? An acute triangle, kind of the same thing. So it's A squared plus B squared. Then you have C squared. Okay? C is going to be the longest side. So if A squared plus B squared is greater than C squared, then it's an acute triangle. So if you have this triangle here, and whatever your longest side is, if this is your longest side, if A squared plus B squared is greater than C squared, then you have an acute triangle. Okay, so it's going to be opposite, right? So obtuse, the two smaller sides are less than the larger side, and then on the acute, the two smaller sides are greater than the longest side. All right, guys, at the very least, you need to have copied everything down and come in with any questions that you have and anything that you don't understand. Go back, just make sure you have everything written down, and tomorrow we're going to do some more practice on this. You can always post something on Edmodo if you have any questions. All right, thanks.